Call to order. 6:02. Roll call, please.
Chairman Melanie Strop.
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Stephen King.
Present.
Commissioner Sean White.
Present.
Commissioner Martin Trujillo.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Debbie, Trustee Wilhelmi just joined.
Commissioner Wilhelmi, are you online?
I am sorry about that. I was, I think, using the wrong old link.
Okay. I'm going to include you with our roll call. So we have 5 commissioners present tonight.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Chris. Thanks for joining us. Before we begin, I would like to do an opening statement for the Planning Commission meeting. Thank you all for attending this Planning Commission hearing. Before we begin, I would like to state that in the interest of public and staff safety, the Town of Monument is currently following the CDC and Governor Polis recommendations of less than 10 people in the boardroom. Last week, the Planning Department posted the plan for a hybrid Planning Commission meeting tonight, which included the public's ability to view each project in our documents on-demand portal and to email in questions about each project. Additionally, similar to the Board of Trustee meetings, the public may attend the meeting via registering with our WebEx software. Those instructions were also available on the town website and on the various social media outlets. The Planning Commission's role is to conduct public hearings and to make recommendations for the Board of Trustees about land use matters in the Town of Monument. Agendas and packet materials for this meeting are available on the town's website. The Planning Commission bylaws are also on the website, and should anyone wish to become a planning commissioner or alternate, you may find an application on the town website as well. Each commissioner agrees to a non-partial, objective, and fair review. Should a commissioner wish to disqualify him or herself for any conflict of personal or financial interest in this matter before us tonight, please say so now. For those who are attending tonight's public hearing via WebEx, please ensure that you raise your hand in WebEx and speak directly to the commission so you can be heard. To ensure a timely and fair hearing, we ask that if multiple people have the same comment, only one person speak on that same subject. Once the public hearing portion is closed, the applicant or staff will be offered an opportunity to provide rebuttal. The commission may ask additional questions at this time. I will then close the public comment session and the commission will deliberate and discuss the proposal. Thank you. This concludes the introduction. We will begin with the first item on tonight's agenda. And that first agenda item is reviewing the previous meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I second that motion.
Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner Martin Trujillo.
Agree and present.
Commissioner Sean White.
Agreed.
Commissioner Steve King. Commissioner Chris Wilhelmi.
Approved. Sorry. Approved. Sorry.
Commissioner Melanie Strop. Chairman
Yes.
Melanie Strop.
Yes.
It's been approved 5-0.
Okay. Falcon Commerce Center Rezone and Sketch PD Plan, ZPSP 2020-538.
Good evening. This is a request for approval for Falcon Commerce Center rezone and sketch plan. The project location is situated south of Baptist Road, west of I-25, and north of the U.S. Air Force Academy. North is Baptist Road and future Santa Fe Park. East is I-25, west is Pioneer Sand, and south is the U.S. Air Force Academy. This lot is approximately 214 acres. This is a zone change. It's rezoned from Planned Industrial Park PIP to Planned Development. According to the Town of Monuments Municipal Code 17.40050 states that any property is subject to a previously approved PD that has been platted and for which certificate of occupancy has not been issued shall be rezoned to PD. This property was originally part of the larger Forest Lakes Business Center. Additions number 1, 2, and 3, which was annexed in the town in 1989. PIP zoning from 1989 is no longer a recognized zoning in the town of Monument. Regency Park, PID, and PCD zones combined are the nearest zoning standards. These zones will allow industrial, commercial, office, civic, recreational, and institutional uses. The only change is the addition of the multifamily residential to enhance the mix of uses in the proposed site. The sketch plan. The sketch plan is a conceptual plan. It indicates the proposed uses and densities of the property, including open space, parks, trails, major planned roadways, and utility services. Falcon Commerce Center PD sketch plan proposed uses are a mix of commercial, office, industrial, distribution, institutional, civic, and multifamily residential use. Open space and internal trails and sidewalk connections to the Santa Fe Trail. Falcon Commerce Center sketch PD plan, land use and densities. The table below shows that. In Area C, which is the largest area, which is 68.54 acres, will be the civic, industrial, and institutional medical office or warehouse distribution with a maximum of 550,000 square feet. Area D will be either non-residential or residential, not the combination of both. Access points. The primary access is off of Baptist Road via Terrazzo Drive. Terrazzo Drive will extend south and will function as a collector road. The road design will be laid out when the applicant submits their preliminary or final PD site plan. The secondary access is west onto Wood Carver Road via Squadron Drive. The second bridge over Jackson Creek, 2 points of access to the southern parcel of Area D, which will be the potential multifamily residential. And this is the sketch plan, which shows all the areas from A to D. Traffic concerns. A traffic signal at Baptist Road, Terrazzo Drive will be warranted at some point during the development of this and/or other projects in the area. When this time comes to install a traffic signal, there will be a land development agreement with the property owners adjacent to the signal. Trails and open space. Pedestrian circulation will be available via the sidewalks along the internal road network and by the trail connections to the Santa Fe Trail. The design of this will be shown at the preliminary and/or final PD site plan when it's submitted. There will be 24.27 acres of open space. This open space will consist of Jackson Creek drainage, floodplain, and Preble's meadow jumping mouse habitat. Next slide is the referrals who reviewed and commented on this project. Staff recommends approval of Falcon Commerce Center rezone and sketch PD plan based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval. Next, Andrea Barlow from NES will present her portion of tonight's presentations.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrea Barlow with NES, representing the developer and landowner. Waiting for my presentation to come up. I'll try not to repeat some of the stuff that Debbie has already covered. focus on a few other things. Okay. So you know that we're applying for a rezone and a sketch plan. And the site location, I think you're familiar with that by now. North boundary is Baptist Road, south is the Air Force Academy, and I-25 on the east side. So just to go a little bit more over the existing zoning, the property was annexed back in 1989 into the town from the county, and it was part of the Forest Lakes Business Center addition, numbers 1, 2, and 3. Numbers 1 and 2 generally reflect the area that is currently being considered. Area 3 was actually a parcel on the east side of the highway south of Baptist, which is currently owned by CDOT. At the same time as the annexation came through, it was required to rezone the property. So that is the PIP, Planned Industrial Park zoning, that Debbie referred to, Ordinance 589, and I believe there's a copy of that and the annexation agreement that was included in your packet. The ordinance states that to the extent that the provisions of the ordinance are in conflict with the monument zoning ordinance as amended, the provisions of the ordinance shall control. The maximum allowed height with that ordinance is 100 feet, and there was various other requirements. I'm just highlighting some of the pertinent ones, and there was a 20-foot private open space easement adjacent to Santa Fe Trail. The zoning, as Debbie mentioned, is no longer recognized. The closest really is the combined PID and PCD zoning for Regency Park, where the uses and the standards are pretty much identical to what was in the 1989 zoning for this property. The code requires the property to be rezoned, so that's a process that we are required to go through by the town's code. So I'm not going to read through these because mainly I can't see them from here, but as you can see, there are multiple different uses in there, a lot of industrial uses, commercial uses, civic, institutional uses, schools, colleges, churches, so on, and a wide range of uses that are permitted by the existing zoning. And we're keeping all of those. That's the plan, to keep all of those existing uses. And Santa Fe Trail, I just want to talk briefly about this. So in the annexation agreement, the developer was required to provide a 30-foot easement for the Santa Fe Trail, and that the developer construct the trail to the town's standards. Things changed a little bit, and what actually transpired is that a 50-foot strip of land was actually deeded to the county, who own the Santa Fe Trail, and the county built the trail to their standards. So that was how it actually transpired, and that 50-foot strip that was deeded to the county included the 30-foot trail easement referred to in the first bullet, plus the 20-foot private open space easement, which was referred to earlier as a zoning requirement. The annexation agreement also stated that the developer, it's a bit strange wording in the negative, but shall not grant permission for more than 3 vehicular crossings of said trail within the land. So currently within this property, the only crossing of the trail is the access, which is a dirt road basically, to the wastewater treatment facility. That's crossing number 1, so that basically allows 2 other crossings of the trail to service this property. So here's the sketch PD plan. It's kind of obviously turned on its head a little bit here, with the north being on the left side of the screen and the Air Force Academy being on the right side. And the various different use areas have subtle differences. The area in red, which is closest to Baptist Road, is primarily commercial, intent for commercial, and with the remainder of the property north of Jackson Creek really being a mix of industrial, distribution, civic uses, and just a broad range of uses. It's a large property, 214 acres. So we try to give ourselves as much flexibility as possible in terms of the range of uses. The area in light blue that you see is the proposed centralized detention. So the northern section, everything north of Jackson Creek, the stormwater will run to that detention pond and be detained there and then released at historic rates. The green area is our proposed open space. The little area that's adjacent to I-25 is just a kind of oddment that we can't really do anything with, so we've left that as open space. It also provides a bit of buffer to the yellow area D. But just going back to the open space, that encompasses Jackson Creek, its drainage, its floodplain, and the associated mouse habitat. So that's wholly contained within the open space area. The yellow area is a little detached from everything else. I'll talk a bit more about that. So that is proposed to be our residential area. We feel we need that flexibility there, and the purpose of the little D-shaped road over the creek is to provide a secondary bridge access to provide two alternative crossings of the creek to get into the residential area. How that is ultimately configured will come out in the preliminary and final PD site plans. So as Debbie noted, the principal access is off Terrazzo Drive. That is the short section of road that's already constructed to service the pilot travel center. So that will be extended to the south and will be a collector all the way through the property. And then going west from the intersection with Terrazzo is a proposed new road, Squadron Drive, which will connect with Woodcarver Road, which is the road that goes south of the traffic circle on Baptist Road. And we are also proposing a right-in, right-out from the commercial area onto Baptist Road between the roundabout and the Terrazzo intersection. That entire section, pretty much from I-25 to the roundabout, is under CDOT control. So we have to apply for appropriate access permits for those. So that is subject to their review. And similarly, the traffic signals will be dictated, the need for them will be dictated by CDOT as to when they need to be installed. And they have an expectation that the developers on each corner will be contributing to those. I think I've covered all the points on that slide. The land use table, again, Debbie referred to this. I just wanted to note on the area D where we're including our multifamily residential, we're looking at, we've provided a maximum number of units based on a density of 15 dwelling units per acre. It's likely to be less than that, but we just wanted to be robust in our assumptions, especially so our traffic consultants could have a conservative approach to the traffic analysis. And similar situation with our maximum square footages for the commercial and the more mixed industrial institutional areas. So here's our proposed zoning permitted uses, and they're all exactly the same as the previous table with the existing uses except for the addition of multifamily residential. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the plan and some of the other aspects of it. We're showing some internal connections to the Santa Fe Trail, both with potential trails, which will be finalized with future plans, and also with the sidewalks that will connect along the streets. So we want to encourage that connectivity both for the residential and the commercial industrial areas. The existing access to the wastewater facility will be retained in some form. At present, as the phasing will progress from the north to the south, we already have submitted our preliminary plan for phase 1, which will be the commercial area and the red area and part of the purple area. And so that connection to the wastewater plant will stay a gravel or dirt road until the phasing reaches that point. And then as I indicated before, we're proposing one new crossing now of Santa Fe Trail is proposed via Squadron Drive connection to Woodcarver. That's the only connection we're proposing with this development, other than the existing one for the wastewater treatment facility. So even though the annexation allows us 3 crossings, we're actually only proposing 1 additional. The maximum building height we're keeping at 100 feet as allowed in the current zoning, and the setbacks we're proposing again is consistent with the current zoning. 50 feet from I-25, 25 feet from Baptist Road, and we're also including Santa Fe Trail at a 20-foot setback, even though the required 20-foot was actually absorbed with the land dedication to the county of 50 feet. So I just want to talk a little bit about our rationale for including multifamily residential. That's the only really change from the existing zoning. The area to the south is separated really from the rest of the project by the drainage way and the mouse habitat area. So it's a little isolated, and we feel that it's unlikely that there will be much opportunity for non-residential in that area just because of its separation. But we do want to keep that opportunity open because there may be some kind of small-scale, low-key use that doesn't require much interaction with public or traffic and what have you that might want to utilize that. But also that physical and visual separation and detachment, we think makes it a good location for residential. It will be kind of buffered significantly from the commercial to the north, and could provide quite a nice little oasis of residential in that area. And we feel that then the residential and non-residential uses together provide the opportunity for a live-work environment, which is encouraged by your comprehensive plan. Talking of which, here are the comprehensive plan designations for this property. So you can see that the yellow line of the property is probably a bit vague to see, certainly from here anyway, but south of Baptist, you can see the northern section is shown as red, and the remainder is pretty much in that light brown color with areas of green. And on the left-hand side of the screen is a summary of what those uses are anticipated to be. So the red is a commercial center, and there are areas that are likely to generate high numbers of vehicle trips, so they're best located near to your major interstate intersections, and promoting uses that are providing goods and services to the region and traveling public as well as the town, and so a broader catchment area. And also providing transition between the heavily traveled areas to the residential neighborhoods. The light industrial areas are seen as being suitable for small office contractors, trade, small fabrication warehouses, and accommodating other kind of more manufacturing and distribution uses as well. And the PR designation is parks and trails. We've obviously matched the main swathe of green through the property where along Jackson Creek there are other parcels shown which coincide with some small isolated and non-jurisdictional wetland areas which will be absorbed into the development because they are non-jurisdictional. And then a few policies which also support this project are those that allow for a wider array of land uses and kind of moving away from your single use development to more mixed use development, and providing appropriate balance of live, work and play environments. So we feel that we're achieving those objectives. There is the opportunity LUE which suggests capitalizing on the I-25 interchanges for sales tax producing land uses, which the commercial will certainly achieve, and some of the other areas as well, and encouraging the highway-oriented uses to be in places that can serve as community centers. And then the promotion of Monument as a major center activity hub for the Tri-Lakes region. All of those objectives we feel that this project will contribute to. And then just in summary, I just wanted to point out your review sketch PD plan review criteria. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but we feel we've hit the key points of protecting open space, providing adequate internal circulation, having a positive fiscal impact, providing a variety of development and housing types. So we're adding in housing here and a mixed land use, providing appropriate relationships between users internally and externally to the site, and also phasing to minimize unnecessary infrastructure or grading. As we indicated, we're going to go from the north to the south to facilitate that, and the utility services are available. And also the design, the plan design, and I think there's reference to architecture in there. It's a little premature to sketch plan, in my opinion, to be talking about architecture. And those matters will be addressed in more detail at preliminary plans and final PD site plans. And then obviously consistency with the comprehensive plan, which I just referenced, and we believe we are consistent with the plan. And with that, I have some summary points there that our current zoning allows the commercial, industrial, office, and civic uses that we're proposing. The municipal code requires us to rezone. The proposed uses and development standards are consistent with the existing zoning. The only thing we've included is multifamily residential, which we feel is justified on that southern section of the site, and conformance with the comprehensive plan and meeting the criteria for review. And that's my summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
The first one is the height of 100 feet that I know that it's zoned for. Does that have any? Are there any issues with the Air Force Academy landing strip that's just south of there with going that high?
We have had, there have been review comments from the Air Force Academy, and we have had discussions with the Air Force Academy, and there are requirements to include certain notifications on the, so it's not so much the height as the need to include notifications regarding activities and noise potentially from the Air Force Academy on any future plats. So we've added those notes on the sketch plan. Obviously, the sketch plan is a recorded document, so it has no kind of weight on the sketch plan, but it's a notification that those notices will have to be carried through all the way to the final PD site plan and plats. We've had extensive discussions with Air Force Academy on drainage and those notifications. But the height, it was discussed, but they acknowledged the fact that the existing zoning allowed for 100 feet. Our anticipation is certainly on the southern section where the residential will be, is that it will be less than that, and it will probably be less than that on the majority of the site, but we wanted to not kind of take away the opportunity of a taller building if one presented itself and it was an appropriate development for the site.
Do they have to approve that, or do you have any?
Could everyone make sure they speak into the
We have to
microphone?
go through a process with the FAA.
Thank you.
So
You want me to ask the question again? Okay.
Yes, please.
Does the Air Force Academy have any jurisdiction over?
okay, so they do, and they refer us to the FAA. So we have to go through an FAA process for any construction on the site to consider impacts on airspace and so on. So there is a process we have to go through, both for height of buildings themselves and for any construction equipment and so on. So that there is a process, and that was an additional note that was required on the plans.
Okay. So on the south property on the multifamily, because that's really the only thing that you're really changing,
Yes.
that you have for 15 units per acre, that's probably apartments, but is there any anticipation of having for sale units in there, or is this just too preliminary for that?
I would say it's too preliminary. We kind of base the density or the numbers on apartments, but it could be something less than that, and it could be a for sale townhome product, or I mean, we've tried to keep the options open as much as possible, but it's a bit premature with the sketch plan to say what type of residential it's going to be. But our density and maximum units were certainly based on apartments. So that's why we see that as being very much the upper limit, and it could be something less.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, good evening.
Hi.
I do have a couple. Yes. I do have a couple of questions. My first question is in the allowed uses in the zoning ordinance, it appears that there are some heavier industrial uses, whereas the comprehensive plan was recommending the lighter industrial uses. While permitted by the zoning code, is your intent to try and limit the uses of the property to those lighter industrial and not entertain the heavier industrial because of the direction of the comprehensive plan?
I'm going to answer that in a way that my client very specifically wants to retain the flexibility of the current zoning. They've had it for a long time, and they are entitled to those uses. Recognizing that it seems the comprehensive plan didn't really take account of that zoning and what that allowed in its direction for this property, but it does the light industrial does give the indication of lighter uses. I think there will be a mix. I don't see it being entirely heavy industry, but there could be some elements of heavier industry in there. But I think the general tone of the project in that the Falcon Commerce Center already has a design review board and design standards and recorded CC&Rs, which are very kind of not too strict, but they have very definite architectural design, landscape standards, which heavy industrial use might not fit into quite as well. But I do think that we certainly don't want to exclude that possibility.
Okay, understood. As far as a wood carver, it currently stops there at Navcis. Is that going to extend further south as part of this development so that the proposed residential would have access to wood carver? Or is it going to continue to stop there at Navcis?
That's a good question because it came up in the review comments from multiple people, and I'm not sure what the best plan to show this on is, but I don't really have a pointer, but does it have a pointer?
It doesn't work on those TVs.
Oh, okay.
It kind of works on
Well,
them.
I'm going to try and explain this then. So you can see where Squadron Drive Arrow meets Woodcarver. Well, just about 200 feet north of that is the limit of the right-of-way. So there is a short section from the roundabout to about 200 feet north of that arrow, which is right-of-way, and it's actually county right-of-way, not town right-of-way. Woodcarver from that point south is private. It is part of the parcel that is actually to the south of that area. So you see that parcel kind of in white there, that's indented by the purple. So that parcel extends and includes that section of Woodcarver. So that is private property, which I understand is currently in discussions with the town for annexation. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. I don't know anything. I'm not involved in that project. But I don't think there is any possibility of Woodcarver being extended south as right-of-way because it terminates into a private property currently.
Makes sense. So if we do have that high-density residential there on the south end, in addition to the collector that goes through the site, is the thought that they would have a secondary access from the wastewater?
No, because that goes nowhere. It only goes to the wastewater treatment plant. So the secondary access, what we try to show here and how this will actually be designed will look different from what we're showing on the plan, but we are showing a second bridge. So there's a bridge that goes over Jackson Creek currently, which is on the main alignment of Terrazzo. And then we're proposing a second access over that, which will provide a second, so provide that 2 points of access over the creek, so that doesn't provide a bottleneck. We've had preliminary discussions with the fire chief, Chief Trudy, about this, and he's okay with that in principle. Again, this is a sketch plan. We will have to flush out those the actual design components of that and how it connects, and also how the internal driveways through the whole development will provide connectivity. So that those matters will be flushed out with the preliminary plans and final plans. But that is the intent, to address that 2 points of access over the creek, that ultimately it will filter into one location, but there will be options either side of that main spine road for alternative circulation.
So multiple options that make use of the primary collector.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So if there's a kind of a bottleneck in one location, that there's an alternative route to get around.
Great. I'm actually delighted, because I thought that increasing the traffic in the southern crossing of the Santa Fe Trail could initiate that pedestrian bike
there will be no
traffic.
traffic from the development crossing the Santa Fe Trail, because there's nowhere to go. It
Right.
literally does just provide access to the wastewater treatment plant.
Understood.
The only crossing
Great.
of the trail for this development will be the Squadron Drive,
Okay.
which in my opinion is one other thing. Maybe I'll leave that to the preliminary plan because we've not finalised it yet.
Sure.
But it's fairly close to the roundabout, so you're already kind of having to slow down for the roundabout
Right.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I walked in here tonight opposed to the notion of residential tucked way down there at the bottom of the development, and the idea that in and out, or whether I'm in a car or whether I'm on foot, it's going to bring me through potentially industrial uses. But your description of kind of an oasis and separation in the green space, now I'm conflicted. And so I'm just thinking in terms of the commercial, the red commercial center, that's a great bedfellow to high density development. And I'd love to see the people who are living there in those potential apartments have have the option to easily walk it to go to a restaurant or any of those services that might be in that red.
Yeah.
But it seems like where it is right now, they're going to be more apt to get in their car and drive because of the distance.
We are going to provide a sidewalk so they can walk and access to the trail, so they could even take the trail, bike on the trail. But I don't know. I would walk it, but
a lot of
I think some will.
This
some
is
won't.
America.
Yeah. So yeah.
So I don't know. I guess what was the thought process in not having the residential, multifamily residential being butted up against the commercial center, and maybe moving some of those industrial uses and hiding that off in the outer 40?
Well, that's a fair point, and mainly because we feel that the areas north at the north around the closest to the Baptist Road intersection are the higher value areas in terms of being able to attract commercial and maybe hotel users who require that visibility and easy access. So putting the residential there would take away that opportunity, really. And whereas on the south side, the opportunity for non-residential users get more limited. And so it seemed like a more logical location to put the rest.
So the primary driver then was more market-driven than planning considerations, you think?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say. I mean, there is an argument to put residential next to commercial, but we feel that those uses and the uses that the town have historically wanted close to the interchanges, that it provides that better access, and that would be consistent with the comprehensive plans policies.
Understood. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, if you can hear me, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Not immediately at this time.
Thank you. I have some questions, Andrea. Thank you, commissioners, for asking a lot of my questions. I appreciate that. Um, plan for the open space. Are there going to be any trails in that open space?
So we're proposing a trail kind of on the south side of the open space, which we feel will kind of have some combined use potentially with the or adjacency to the access to the wastewater treatment facility. But because of the habitat areas, we are limited to actually being able to provide trails through that area.
Okay. The topography of that area is challenging, can be challenging for building with the topography. Question as far as 100-foot height, would you build up and bring in fill and build on top, build up to say an additional elevation and then build the 100 feet on top of that elevation? Is that a possibility?
It's going to be a combination because the site is undulating, and so there will be some cut and fill. So I can't say for certain that the height will be above the current ground level of 100 feet. It is measured from finished grade based on the code, so it will vary at different parts of the site. The site generally slopes from north to south. That's why our detention pond is in that southern part of the northern section, and with on the south side, it would also be on the southern part. Did I say northern? Southern part of the section anyway. So it does gently slope from north to south. So there will be some grade that will be taken up through development, and but we haven't really got to final grading. We're looking at our initial overlap grading now for our first phase and for the detention pond, and those sort of questions probably can be answered a little bit more in detail when we come forward with the preliminary plan for the first phase. But I would say it'd be a mixture of some will be below the current grade and some will be above.
Okay. And with that, what is an example of a 100-foot tall building?
About 9 to 10 stories. Usually you're talking about 10 feet per story, 10 to 11 feet per story, and usually the first story is a little bit higher. So maybe, maybe not quite 10, maybe more 8 to 9 stories.
Okay. Debbie, can you also show us the usability chart of what businesses can be permitted in this area? Oh, sorry.
I just like to add one thing on the height question though. As soon as you start getting above about 4 stories, the nature of construction changes and it gets a lot more expensive. So that's why majority of buildings are I can't make this go backwards. Switch it off maybe. So that is one big limitation on building height and that's why you don't see that many tall buildings above 4 stories, and most apartments tend to stop at 4 stories.
Okay. To the northeast of that area is our Jackson Creek community, and a lot of those residents value the view that they see between their home and Pikes Peak. And by adding a 9 to 10 story building, that can definitely potentially obstruct that view, which so many residents love. So I just, I
think it will change their view. I think they will still, first of all, I think it's extremely unlikely that there will be buildings that tall on the site. And I think they will provide, because of the fall, from the Jackson Creek neighborhood going south, there's quite a significant grade drop. And so buildings on the site will provide a forefront to the buildings, but they won't obscure, a forefront to the mountains, but they won't obscure the mountains.
Well said. Thank you. Service-related businesses, right above warehousing on permitted uses. There's a rumor about 2 to 3 months ago in our town that a strip club was being opened right just south of Baptist. Would that, a strip club be, I guess, a service-related business?
I suppose potentially it could. It's a broad category. It was one that was in the existing zoning, as I mentioned, and also in the it's, as I said before, it's consistent with the Regency Park zoning, so it's in that zoning as well as a use. I don't believe, and I would have to check the code. The code has currently very limited definitions of uses. I do think it had a few for Regency Park, but I'm not sure if that was particularly specified for service related. So it is a broad ranging use. And I mean, I think we're willing to consider any specific uses that you might think are inappropriate as restrictions, but usually that type of use, adult-oriented businesses, if I think of the code in Colorado Springs, has very specific criteria that are attached to them where they are allowed.
They're actually not allowed in this area is highway industrial areas, which is not zoned for this area. It's more where highway industrial areas, more where the recycling area is down 105. If you know what I'm talking about, that's more of a highway industrial area, and that's where those type of uses are usually allowed.
And
not in
where
this
is
type area.
that stated? Well,
In the code.
okay,
our
in
land
code.
development
Okay.
code. Yes.
So adult entertaining services would not be permitted in this area.
Exactly. It would
Okay.
be a highway industrial area, which is stated in the land development code.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Andrea, for letting her do that. Those are my questions. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Chris, any questions?
Is this for the applicant?
Yes.
Just for further clarification, the service-related businesses is a term that remains undefined? Service-related businesses is a term that remains undefined?
Yes, it is. In fact, really, none of the uses have specific definitions, and this has come up at multiple hearings I've been before with the Town of Monuments, and I'm hoping it's something that's going to be addressed with your zoning code update. Other jurisdictions have definitions that go along with their land use categories, which provide much more meat to the bones, so to speak, and give a little bit more clarity about what's intended. We don't want to start doing that for you with our planning efforts, because we believe that there should be consistency across the board in terms of land use definitions. And so one project has a use that you know what it means from a use across town or a different project. So it is an issue, and like I say, we would be which we can't solve, I don't think, with this project, but we are open to consider if there are any uses of specific concern, maybe looking at a way of defining something better if that's needed.
To Commissioner Strop's earlier point, do you have any renderings or depictions showing the impact on views to the maximum height that's allowed?
No, we don't. Again, I would feel that would be a little premature at this stage without knowing what our buildings are going to look like and what the massing of those buildings would be. A maximum height could involve just one small section of a building. So, I mean, to assume buildings across the site all at 100 feet would be unrealistic. And like I say, I feel with the sketch plan a little premature at this point.
Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you, Chris. Andrea, thank you for your presentation. At this time, I will close the. Yes, most definitely. Yes, sir.
So just one more question for you, Andrea, just to talk about this height thing. So in your, and I don't, thumbing through my notes here, but you have restrictions in here on square footages for each area, regardless. So I guess what I'm saying is the likelihood of something being 100 feet when you can go out instead of up would be more likely. If I was building something like that, I would rather just spread it out rather than go up, since you're restricted on the total number of square footage for a building in each area. Is that correct?
That's right, and our assumptions on the buildings, square footage limitations, and the FARs, which is the floor area ratio that we used, was really assuming pretty much 2 to 3 story buildings. We had hotels in there as just to help our assumptions of maybe going up to 4 stories, but as I indicated before, the construction techniques require you to go to a different level once you get to 4 stories or over, and our assumptions are that that wouldn't happen. And then obviously with the floor area ratios, if you go up, you're reducing your footprint. So yes, it would make more sense for most people to go a shorter building and more floor space, more floor area coverage.
Okay, thanks for answering that. I just wanted to kind of get that out there. I understand why you want to keep the 100-foot height, because you have it.
Yeah.
But just to kind of ease that concern down, that's how I'm envisioning it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good way to approach it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, Andrea. Commissioners, anything else for Andrea?
If we have any questions for the staff, do we wait till after you close it?
Nope, you could ask the staff right now.
Okay, I do have a question for the staff. Here in Monument, how do we view it? Is the zoning code out of compliance with the comprehensive plan, or is the comprehensive plan out of compliance with the zoning code?
That's a good question. Right now, we go off of our zoning map, and which is going to be redone with our land development rewrite, which with the understanding of the type of uses that could be used is being rewritten as well with the land development code. So they all go hand in hand, and with the rewrite of the land development code will help ease this for future projects. It will ease the applicant and the planner on, yes, you can do this, no, you cannot do this, without being so broad too. So that's going to help with the depiction, and our comprehensive plan shows the future land use map, in which this project falls within the future land use map, and then we go over that. And their zoning map, like I said, we go over that as well to make sure they're in compliance when they do submit their project, which is going to be redone during the land development code rewrite.
So when it comes push come to shove,
Yeah.
the zoning code governs over the comprehensive plan?
Yes. We have to make sure what is zoned in what area, and that's the first question that the applicant asks us when they call us for a pre-application meeting. They would ask, we would like to do X, Y, Z. We know it's zoned in this area. Is this use allowed? And then we would have to then go to our land development code to make sure if that use is allowed within that zoning because the zoning is so broad. PCD, PID, PD,
Right.
a lot of them broad, and they have many, many uses in our land development code. But the uses in our land development code aren't detailed. They aren't described in much detail. Some of them are very vague.
Right.
Like you were saying earlier for services and where they can be. And that's why in our land development code, we have uses and uses by right and special uses that are allowed and permitted. So they have to go through that process if they want to go off the permitted uses that we allow within that zoning area. So they go hand in hand, but you first look at the zoning map, and then if they ask for a particular use, then we go to our land development code.
So it's not a Venn diagram approach where
Yeah.
zoning allows this, comprehensive plan allows this, and where
Yeah.
they intersect is what will permit. We
Yes.
just say zoning.
So that's why when an applicant submits their project, we have to look at all three pieces: the zoning map, the land development code, and the comprehensive plan to show what we decided for future land uses in that area to make sure it goes all hand in hand with each other.
As a commissioner in the town of Monument, that kind of breaks my heart because it eviscerates the purpose of the comprehensive plan. So I
Yeah.
would hope that we would continue to press as rapidly as possible to get the zoning code in
Yes.
compliance with the comprehensive
Within
plan.
a year and a half, it will be done,
Okay,
hopefully. So
that's all I have.
Any questions for the staff? Chris, any questions for the staff?
No questions for the staff. No questions for the staff.
Thank you. I would like to close I'll close this part, but then open the public hearing. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. At this time, do we have any public comments?
At this time, we have no hands raised, ma'am, but I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay. Is there anybody in the hall? Okay. Okay. I will close this part of the public presentation. And commissioners, I ask that we discuss this as before our vote. So, Steve, do you want to start us off?
So, Don, to address your point on where this residential part is located, I saw the same exact thing when I first looked at this. But as a former developer and builder, to me, it makes sense to put it down there, and mainly because
Put the residential down
put the
there.
residential
Okay.
down there, only because it's apartments. If it was single family next to the freeway, driving through an industrial area, I would be afraid to do that. But people that are living in apartments or condos will,
That comes with the territory.
yeah,
really.
they'll deal with the noise, they'll deal with the planes, they'll deal with the driving through the industrial areas to have a place to live. And on top of it, it borders the Air Force Academy, which is a pretty nice view,
Mhm.
and it's right next to the Santa Fe
Trail.
Trail, right? So I would agree that anything other than apartments would be an issue. I'm also fairly happy that there is some residential going in here because
Me too.
there's a lot of commercial and industrial vacant lots just sitting around doing nothing. And it's going to get more difficult, probably.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that point.
So if you were planning this out as a developer, you would have ended up with the same decision to put residential down in the back 40.
Right. Because if there was a high demand for industrial property, I probably wouldn't, but I don't think there is. And I don't think there's going to be anytime soon. And I think, even down Mitchell, we have some vacant lots sitting there, been sitting there for years. So, you've got to open up some options.
I'm having this recurring thought. You bring up, we have a lot of vacant commercial and office and light industrial. And we're seeing lots of developments coming through, building more of that. And each applicant says, no, they've done their market analysis and it supports it. And I'm just scratching my head. How do the pro formas support more of that type of development? Is anyone else asking themselves that same question? Particularly in the medical and the dental, I just feel like I'm getting ads in my mailbox constantly, like, come new patients, accepting new patients. And it just feels like there's a surplus. But I don't know, maybe I'm not as in tune with the market as developers.
And with that, it would be location. A lot of the current areas for that, it's just hard to get to. So I would say it's more location in regards to trying to be close to I-25, easy access. And that's where we're getting a lot of our demand right now from applicants is along that I-25 corridor. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I work a lot in Denver, and being able to just hop right on and get some places, definite.
My concern is that height, guys. I don't, and
Look, I agree with you on the height. I don't like it either, but it's already there.
it is.
I just, from a practical standpoint, there's floor area limitations in each one of these bubbles, right? It's really expensive, as Andrea says, to go up. And I just don't see that practically happening. It can, right?
Yeah.
You can't say, well,
it's
I mean,
zoned.
there's Great Wolf Lodge over there, right? But to me, it just doesn't seem that practical, and they already have it. I mean, I don't see how we could take that away.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, just to get the residential down there, I wouldn't give up the residential just to, because you want to give up the height.
Is there anything in the code that would prevent increasing the lot coverage or relaxing the floor ratio, floor to area ratio, such that there's greater option to go out?
Well, I mean, I guess they can come back and ask for it.
Could that be a condition for approval? Consider.
But it's already on here.
It's just a sketch, so they don't know what's going in.
Yeah. I mean, you can always come back and ask for something else.
Yeah.
That's kind of how, and you can say no. Right.
But I agree. I think the slope to the west is such that a tall facility, a tall building down near the interstate isn't going to be that dramatic of
I sure
hindrance.
hope not, but it's just the topography there. They're going to have to build up and bring in a lot of fill dirt in some of those areas.
Some areas. Yeah.
So, and if they get a 100-foot building on top of that,
Well, they're probably not going to be bringing in fill. They'll just redistribute what's
yeah,
there. No,
true.
I'm not kidding. It's
Yeah.
really
Oh, yeah.
It's expensive
to bring in fill.
to
Yeah.
haul it in. Yeah, I feel pretty confident that the economics aren't going to drive a 9-10 story building.
Yeah.
Not with.
I'm
It could happen, but-
98% sure it's not.
Right.
How's that?
So I feel pretty comfortable.
Yes. Hey, Chris, any comments or questions as a fellow commissioner?
So I'll do my best because there's this weird delay that occurs when I speak. So let me just see if I can blurt it all out. Delay that occurs when I speak. So let me just see if I can just blurt it all out. I think I am not satisfied with the presentation. I am not satisfied that there was any depictions. I know that the probability of a 100-foot building or anything like that is low, but I'd still like to see it. I still think that it's a simple ask, even just one building, not necessarily a ton of skyscrapers, so to speak. I am not, I'm a little frustrated by the idea that, again, we're operating under the permitted uses that are undefined, that are being revised and conceivably very well should be addressed on this redo that we're having that's coming up. And hopefully it's faster than a year or a year and a half. But the idea of, again, leaving it open to service-related businesses, thinking about the idea that what is next door right now, it's a truck stop. And what is next door to that truck stop is another truck stop. What businesses will be drawn to that area, immediately around that area, to support the needs of that truck stop. And I'm sorry, truck stops. So in that way, I can only see this area being attractive, especially immediately, to businesses that support repair or assistance to large commercial trucks, or possibly more than that. I'm not sure if that is something that is in Monument's best interest. And then finally, if there is thoughts that, well, aside from all of these other points that were raised, I think we again need to just go back at the very least and look at the permitted uses, the ones that we can kind of understand, kind of know, and just come to grips with. We are conceivably approving these permitted uses at this time as well. So what do we have to say about it right now or forever hold our peace? All I have.
So Chris, here's my understanding of this. This property is currently zoned for all those permitted uses, including the height. What they are asking for really is the option to put residential uses on the south end of this property. There's nothing in our code currently that would that has any limitations on any kind of time. There's no time element for having to start any kind of improvements on anything that's already out there. My understanding is that if we restrict any of those uses, it would be considered a taking, and I don't think we can do that. What we could do is have a condition that says if we allow you to put residential on the south end of this property, you have to give up some of these uses. But personally, I welcome the residential on the south end of the property, and I don't think, I can't speak for them, but if I controlled this property, I wouldn't give up those other uses to get in 40 acres of apartments. But that's just me. So that's my understanding on what we're dealing with right now.
Good feedback, Steve. I understand putting on the developer hat for a moment and just understanding what the limitations are. If it is considered a taking, I don't know if it goes that far, to be honest with you. I think that they're very conceivably, like, for instance, the heliport, that is a permitted use. Not that I necessarily have anything against heliports or would otherwise, how that would impact Monument, I don't know. But in terms of conditioning, my understanding is that we can either restrict or otherwise put some special condition on uses that we feel would not be in agreement or otherwise conducive to the general plan. That's just my thought on it.
A motion to do that in order to approve the residential on the south end of the property. I mean, that's really what you have if there's something that you want to restrict in there.
Okay, commissioners. Open discussion. Anything else? Yes, Martin.
Yes, ma'am. Andrea, very detailed brief. That was pretty thorough. And I think one of the main questions I have, and just focusing on the traffic, as we go in the light industrial aspect towards the south, most of that would be built up with apartments being on that south side. Most of that thoroughfare that's coming in from Highway 83 going west towards I-25 to go to the interchange, and then most of the traffic that's coming southbound or northbound on I-25 what commercial buildings would actually be placed? What would be the, I guess, what would be built there?
We can't answer any questions right now since it's closed.
Okay.
But you had
Yep.
your time earlier to ask questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to
No.
break that to you.
Let's go back to traffic, though. As far as traffic, what would be the proposed traffic?
Oh, we can't
You
answer
can-
any
Oh, we can only
questions
talk
right
to
now.
us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
The commissioners
Yeah.
are just talking.
See, it's.
I know you're
yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
new. I know this is new. I'm sorry.
No
you
worries,
had to
no
explain
worries.
that to you, but during this time of discussion, it's not for questions to
Questions.
the applicant or staff. It's just discussion through planning commissioners.
But we could answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we could answer.
Perfect. Steve, you're right on. I mean, great questions, as this is the first one sitting in here. My concern is traffic. And as I look at this, I'm looking at that I-25 from 83 over coming west to the interchange. I'm looking at I-25 going north and south. But my concern is as that traffic comes west on Baptist, going on to I-25, just the pure volume that we have now is already an issue. Throwing more traffic with semis, throwing more traffic with individuals that are coming through that area. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be a complete study in relation to what's going to be there. But my concern, just like Chris had mentioned, was all the industrial use for all these semis that are going to be in there. Are we the hub for those semis on this corridor, being on the south side, knowing that we have the chain up station to the south on I-25? Or is that what we're looking to build here? I guess, is that what we want in our town? And I don't know. That's just a general question to understand why this needs to be built there.
It's not so much what we want, it's what's allowed
Yes,
and
ma'am.
what's it's zoned for.
Okay.
And the zoning allowed for the truck stations. That
Yes,
trucks, the Diamond and Shamrock truck station was here for 30 years.
Sure.
And then Pilot came in and we had to allow it because it's part of the zoning. And so as far as that intersection on Terrazzo and Baptist, it will be addressed with a light or a traffic study when more buildings get built. And they usually bring us, what happens is they bring us a traffic study and we ask about the date, how many uses are used at that time.
Okay.
And typically it's when an applicant is coming to build a building
Yes, ma'am.
or construct anything.
And I would say when it comes to traffic, your industrial uses tend to generate significantly less than either residential or retail, where you've got, you know, a lot of turnover. So the fact that we have so much of that type of industrial development being proposed, now, put in a hotel or whatever, you know, that's going to be a lot. But, you know, if they're catering to truck repair, I don't think that's going to drive a ton of additional traffic. It might bring more semis
Sure.
over there. So it's kind of a give and take. There's pros and cons to having that industrial.
Here's what generates traffic, right? Drive-throughs, grocery stores, 7-Elevens. I mean, they're constant in and out. These type of areas, especially if they're on shifts, then you'll get a run, you know, from when something closes, and you'll see a bunch of traffic even at the same time. But there are traffic engineers and traffic studies that do it. Every single public hearing I've ever been to, people complain about the traffic, and I get it. It's never going to be less.
Yeah.
But at some point we have to depend on the engineers to make those decisions, because we're not traffic engineers.
Sure.
I just leave it up to those people. Same with water and sanitation and all that other stuff. We're just not the experts. If they approve it, I just go with it.
But when we look at the developments, make sure that the right people, they put up on use who's reviewed and sign off on it.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that if we don't see that CDOT or, you know, a traffic study was done, then we can say, hey, what about?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Apologize. And thank you for
No,
your answers.
no apology. This is why we have discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for your questions. Okay, I guess at this time discussion is closed and we need to move on to a vote.
Yeah.
Chris, would you like to, I guess beforehand, I would like to preface, it doesn't have to be a yes or a no. One thing I've I've learned on a lot of these community boards that I have sat on is it's always a yes or a no. And then I go home and I'm like, oh, I should have did this, or I should have did that. And I would like to encourage fellow commissioners that it could be yes with a condition. So just remember that it doesn't have to be a yes or no. It could also be yes with a condition. So.
And if a fellow commissioner recommends a yes or a no, or a yes with a condition, we don't agree with that condition.
If it does not get second, it does not go to a vote.
So if somebody makes a condition and you don't agree with that condition, but you agree with the project, let's
Right.
just say, that becomes a no, and then it becomes another motion after that, if it fails. I mean, it might pass, right?
Right.
But if it fails, then it becomes another motion.
Okay, got it.
Chris, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Would you like to motion for a vote?
I'm not quite sure how I would put the condition I'm thinking in. My biggest concern has to do with the development of that area, the immediate area of being a center hub. I've taken now 6 long drives through Nebraska to Iowa to visit my in-laws, and getting off on certain stops and seeing what really starts to build around what may have been an anchor very much concerns me, especially with all the development that's already there on Baptist. Beautiful homes, a beautiful residential area, and carving it out into, I just, my future is kind of grim on this. I'm not quite sure how I would articulate that condition to be appropriate, but that's my concern.
Well, then at this time, I would like to make a motion to approve Falcon Commerce Center rezoning and sketch plan ZPSP 2020-538 as written.
I second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Melanie Straup,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Wilhelmi,
No.
Commissioner Stephen King,
Yes.
Commissioner Sean White,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin Trujillo.
Yes.
It has been approved 4-1.
And the interim commissioners, if I could just ask, part of the reason he's getting feedback is because mics are on.
Oh.
That's why you've been hearing me mute it so that we're not getting double feedback. So in between stuff, if you could just hit it, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Oh no, you guys are good. You're busy.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay.
Commissioner Straup,
Yes, sir.
can I make a motion for a 5-minute break before we move to the second development?
Most definitely. I would like to call a 5-minute recess break. The board will adjourn back at 7:26.
pushing on them. They're trying to. They've been really hesitant to do anything with sales tax coming in, but it sounds like from what I've heard, it's been promising. So they'll maybe start to like, okay, loosen it up a little bit, because that's one of those things that falls into is like, is it COVID? Could we try to claim it? It's a really gray area. So we're pushing on that. I've been working on it, and especially with former Commissioner Trustee LeKind, who's also been very adamant about making sure we get that sorted. So it's definitely on my radar. Yeah. Good.
1 minute. Okay. The time is now 7:26, and I would like to call the Planning Commission meeting back in session. Okay, Ms. Debbie, you are up for our next applicant, ABC Landscaping, Inc., PD Site Plan, PDSP 2020-542.
Again, this is a request for approval of ABC Landscaping Warehouse Outdoor Storage, the rezone and plan development preliminary final site plan. And this is the vicinity map of the location.
I'll just do it.
You're just doing, okay.
All right.
The project location, the site is located west of I-25, about half mile north of State Highway 105 on Beacon Light Road. The development would access directly off of Beacon Light Road, and it's 5 acres in size, and its Wolf Business Court is to the south of this property. The preliminary final PD site plan. It's a rezone from plan commercial development to plan development, and this is because of our land development code and our municipal code of 17.40.050 that states that any property is subject to previously approved PD that has not been platted and for which certificate of occupancy has not been issued shall be rezoned to PD. The site plan indicates a 5,120 square foot warehouse shop. The proposed site will include fenced outdoor storage yard, required parking, and landscaping. A chain link fence is proposed for security purposes. Mature trees will be screened from the shop from all sides from inside the fence, and the trees that are on this property currently will be moved to be aligned with along this fence so we could reuse the trees on the property. A wall light on the exterior of the proposed warehouse shop. Water, sewer, electricity, and gas are in or adjacent of Beacon Light Road. Small drainage swale. It's running primarily north to south, which will remain as is. Next slide. It's a warehouse shop elevations. This is similar to what you just approved from the last planning commission of Redline Pipeline. It'll be similar to their storage warehouse. Next slide. ABC Landscaping. It's a locally owned and operated landscaping business for over 30 years. They create custom landscapes for their clients. A patio for a quaint little sitting area to amazing custom design that accommodates large events. ABC Landscaping typical hours of operation is a 10-hour a day, 4 to 5 days a week, 20 total trips a day. The landscaping crew will consist of 4 to 6 employees. We'll load up the vehicle in the morning with materials and equipment, and crew return about 5 p.m. each day to unload. Business owner and part-time assistant work at the shop during the day. Clients and customers generally do not visit the shop because it's not a retail business. Next slide. So this is their smaller scale of their landscaping. Next slide. And this is the larger scale of their landscaping business. Next slide. And another picture of their larger scale of what they do. Just to give you a little information about this company, like I said, they're locally owned, and they're growing big, and they do most of their business in the town of Monument. Next slide. And these are the referrals who reviewed and commented on this project. Next slide. Staff recommends approval of ABC Landscaping Warehouse Outdoor Storage, rezone and preliminary final PD site plan, based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval. And the owners of the property, of the business, is here to answer any questions.
Excellent. What's your guys' names?
I'm Michael. I'm retiring as we speak, hopefully. And my son, he went to CSU for this, and he's taken over. So, we've been at Circle and I-25 for 30 plus years in the same size facility on the same size lot. That end of town is not where we work anymore. So we want to get live, and we've lived for. We just want to move up here to the local area where we tend to work.
Awesome. What type of materials will be stored in this facility?
Just typical landscape materials. Nowhere's near, I don't want to get the confusion with traffic behind. You know, we'll have bins with topsoil and some rock in them. You might have some flagstone on pallets. We're very fortunate because the lot that we bought got quite a few mature trees already. So we're going to clear some trees out, but like Debbie was saying, we're going to have a fence, and behind that, we're going to screen all the way around, not all the way around, on I-25 and Beacon Light side, with mature trees, 8, 10, 12 feet tall already behind the fence. We're just going to move. So that's our intent to kind of break it up, screen it so you don't.
Can you please? Thank you.
I don't need a mic. I'm kind of loud. Okay.
Thank you.
Debbie, question for you. PCD to PD. What is PCD?
Planned commercial development
And then PD is
to
planned.
planned development.
Okay.
And it's just required with their land development code to rezone if it hasn't been platted and a certificate of occupancy hasn't been issued. It's required with our code to zone to planned development.
Okay. Dean, question. I would say landscaping is more of a seasonal job.
Yes.
So what do you do in the winter?
Not much.
Okay.
We usually work 8, 9 months out of the year. During the winter, Michael's going to probably be maintaining vehicles, check this, check that. But for the most part, we're not working. I did for years, and we don't do it anymore. We take off 3 or 4 months every year. No snow removal.
No snow removal. Okay. And then Debbie, with CDOT, did they recommend a traffic study with this business?
There was just a traffic letter since there's only going to be 20 trips per day coming out of this area.
Okay. Steve?
I only have one question since you're a landscaper. Are you going to try and save the trees that you move?
I'm going to move the trees along I-25 and Beacon Light that we can. Obviously, we're going to do trees, I think the plan says every 20 to 25 feet. There's already several that is our natural fence already. So we're going to fill in between, but some of them will have to come out to put in the building. Keep in mind that the building's 2% of the 5 acres. So there's not a whole lot of impact on what we're doing. I mean, in time, we may have to do something different, but in theory, our yard on an acre is enough. It just happens to be a 5-acre lot.
Okay, thanks.
One thing I'd like to point out while we've got the slide showing, we've narrowed down the building. The footprint is the same. The color is the same, but the exact style is a little different. We just signed last week. It's still a 5,100 square foot building. And the colors are, like Debbie said, almost the exact same as she advised us to just go with Peak Rental, so we did that.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I actually don't have any questions. I just think that this is a really well laid out development. I think it's a great usage of that particular lot, and I'm excited for this development.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great presentation. My only question, fleets within the trucks that you have, or what type of trucks will be moving in and out of the roadway there on Beacon?
Typically, right now, we have, 4 1-ton, 1.5-ton trucks and 1 tandem dump truck. That's it.
Commissioner Chris?
Just a couple questions. Will there be any meaningful fuel storage and or oil storage and or any repair going on at that facility?
At this point, we don't have, we're not planning on it, but we may bring in an off-road diesel tank that will have to be in a vault, hidden on the back side of the shop, screened with some trees, like a typical excavation company would have. And the one we have now is 250 or 500 gallons. It's not very big.
It's the one you have now stored outside?
And I'm sorry, you had another question. I can't remember what. Yes, the tank that we have now is stored outside on a stand, and it sits in a concrete vault. If there was ever a breakage, that it has to be able to contain what's in the tank full.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jean and Michael, great presentation, and I love a small town family coming up and building their business. That's awesome. At this time, we do open the meeting up to public comment, and we did have an email public comment come in that I would like to speak on his behalf and ask the questions that he had on the email. So I'm speaking on behalf of Dale Walleniak. He is out of town, so he emailed us these, and he is off of, I believe he is a homeowner. Oh, here we go. He is a homeowner at 19260 Spring Valley Road in Monument, Colorado, 80918. And some of the questions he had are, the first one is, does ABC intend to have a wall built around the property or just a see-through fence?
We plan on having a chain link fence, 6-foot chain link fence, similar to the property in the Wolf Court area.
The property just south of you, the
Correct.
Tri-Lakes collision.
Yep.
Okay. And so it's a 6-foot. He wanted to know how high it would be. And then the next question is, does ABC plan on storing landscape material like rock, trees, firewood, gravel, etc. on the property? In other words, is this a landscaping company storage site for materials or just office and vehicles used in this profession?
We will have stores, like we said in the plan, with a couple concrete bins, just holding various different piles of materials. Most of our rigs and equipment will be planned to be parked inside, so we will have piles outside, but again, those will be nice small piles, and the plan also stated that none of them should be over approximately 15 tons, or 15 feet, so no large piles, all clean, organized, and we shouldn't have more than a dozen of them, I would assume.
Okay. Will the property be used to store vehicles like boom trucks, trailers, vans, and miscellaneous vehicles like backhoes, diggers, etc.? Will they store RVs, or I guess RVs, and is this allowed on this commercial property? Just up the road is an RV storage place that is open without a wall, and it's an eyesore, along with the propane gas storage site.
Yes, this site, we will store vehicles for the landscaping services. Most of them will, again, be inside the shop. That's why we have a large enough shop to maintain and hold all of them right now. There will be vehicles for the employees that will park outside during the daytime, but most of our work vehicles will be inside, and I don't foresee RVs being over there.
Okay. I understand the building is 5,000 square feet. This is a 50 by 100 building. Will the location on the property be towards I-25 or Beacon Light?
The location of the shop is on the north end of the property, pretty much right in the middle from east to west, from between Beacon Light and I-25 on the north side.
access, will this facility have access from the existing entrance that is south of the intended property? This is a cul-de-sac that is concrete.
No, this will have access directly off Beacon Light on the north side of the property. It will not enter from the Wolf Court. It will enter directly from the Beacon Light.
Access. If the property access is off Beacon Light, will there be a turn lane added to Beacon Light to accommodate traffic into the property?
I do not foresee a turn lane being needed because, again, we're typically around 20 trips per day. So for the minimal amount of trips, we do not need a turn lane.
Awesome. Thank you from Mr. Dale Woleniak at 19260 Spring Valley Road. Andrew, do we have any other public comments? Anybody in the hall? Okie dokie. At this time, I would like to close the meeting for public and applicant questions. Commissioners, it is time for us to discuss the motion at hand. Mr. Steve, want to start us off?
Sure. I don't really have any comments to make. My opinion is pretty much the same as it's been for something like this. Should be just a zoned lot, and they should be able to go down and pull a building permit. And after we get our code revised, I hope that that's part of that. Single property doesn't need public.
I concur with that sentiment. I think it needs to be made easier for applicants to do a permitted use such as this in an area that's already industrial. So no, I think it's a great development and one of the higher and better uses they could select for that spot.
No objections whatsoever. Again, they have a thorough plan. I think it would fit perfectly right in the landscape in that area. So definitely agree.
Commissioner Wilhelmi.
Nothing for me. Thank you. Nothing for me. Thank you.
Well, I have nothing, Dean and Michael. So at this time, I guess Commissioner forum is closed and we need a motion.
Make a motion. I make a motion that we approve ABC Landscaping Company PD Site Plan PDSP-2020-542 as written.
I happily second that.
Okay. Commissioner Martin Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Sean White,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve King,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Wilhelmi,
Yes.
Chairman Melanie Straup.
You have 5 yeses.
Yep, this has been approved 5-0.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Fun to be part of it. Here we go. Yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. I thought I was bailing, but I don't know if you call it retired or retarded, but I'm in it. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks for all your help.
Okay, I would like to open up the floor to non-agenda public comments. Drew? Anybody in the hall? Thank you, Drew. Reports and communication from planning staff. Do you have anything for us, Debbie?
I don't have anything. Just want to let you know this was our last special meeting. Hopefully, for now on, we'll just have one a month. So so it goes that way. If we get caught up again with an influx of projects coming in all at once, we might have to do another special meeting, but at this time we don't need to. And I would like to thank you all for doing this. We greatly appreciate it during these times. So, oh, and Drew did a great job downloading the DOLA presentation that was presented to you in March for the training video. And if you all like, I think I recently sent it to you, but I could send it again if you need a refresher or any materials that come to your mind for questions that come up, such as the comp plan or land development code or the zoning map. If you have questions regarding that prior to any meetings, just email me or call me and we could sit down and have a conversation, or I could go through some materials that we have in the office as well if you'd like to come in for me to explain anything further to you for the planning process, that what we go through. Just to give you all a heads up, it's always, our door is always open for education, and you're more than welcome to come by and make an appointment anytime. That's all I have for everybody.
As always, job well done, Debbie. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
commissioners.
Debbie, are those first 3 chapters that we're looking at right now, are they available if they just wanted to?
I could send it to the planning commissioners. We just don't want to post it on our website.
Right.
Until
Yeah,
it's
don't post it on the website.
Yeah, we don't
But-
want to post. Yeah.
Right, but for the rest of the
Yes.
commissioners, if they wanted to just look at that?
Yes, I could send it to everybody if you all wish.
I second that motion.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No motion.
And I
Just
appreciate
ask.
your comments. I appreciate you commenting on the chapters. Greatly appreciate it. Planning commissioners were the first to submit.
Steve, any comments? Any communications from you?
I'll just talk about this again. So we've gone through 3 chapters now. There's a lot to absorb, and we've got an entity that's got boilerplates that's trying to make things work for our town, and in most cases it does work, but like I was explaining to Debbie, I've been through this before when I was at Inglewood, and the sign code was a nightmare. There was everywhere, because there's a Supreme Court ruling that came out that some town or somebody in Arizona sued over what the content could be on these signs, and it's a free speech thing to where you can't control the content on a sign. So, like, if you had a garage sale, you can't specify what a garage sale sign, the size of a garage sale it needs to be. You have to put something to the effect of temporary signs can go into public right-of-way from Friday till Sunday from 8 to 6. But you can't specify what they can say. It makes it really difficult, especially when you've got businesses and you've got so many different types of signs. How do you restrict all these things? You've got the signs that go on the buildings, but then in a fast food restaurant, you've got enter here, drive this way, park here for takeout. How do you regulate all those signs? It's super difficult.
We're just regulating the design, not what goes on the sign, right?
Right, but okay, let me just say it this way. So unless you have like some maximum square footage of signage that a business can have overall, and the maximum size of a sign that goes on the front wall is X, how about all those other little signs that go in the parking lot that can just have logos on them and say eat here or whatever, right? It's really difficult to control all that stuff now. And it's difficult to control signs in people's yards, because of the same thing. Whereas before you could say you can have a for sale sign, or you can have a political sign from October to November 3rd or whatever it is, and you just can't control that stuff as much as you used to be able to. So it's really, that's probably the hardest part of a code anymore, is just that kind of stuff. But we're past her cutoff time, but I'm sure we can still interact if you guys look at any of these chapters. I mean, one's on plating and one's on signs and one's just general requirements. That's out right now, but, you know, look at them if you got time.
And like I said, if you ever want to set up a meeting to go and over them too, before you comment, you're more than welcome to come by too. Yeah. It'd be nice to hash it out with someone else until Larry comes back on August 10th. He'll be back. Just to give you a heads up too.
Commissioner Sean White?
No, I think that's good.
Good. You
I'm
don't
done.
have any comments off the board or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Trujillo, your first meeting, you did a great job. Any questions, comments, concerns?
No, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. Definitely, staff has been definitely giving us the opportunity to go out there and get the information. I think I'll be making an appointment after this meeting, but appreciate all the insight, Steve, everything that you had stated. Chris, for standing to your vengeance, obviously that was definitely commend that. And Sean, again, always everything. But for the opportunity, definitely has been immense, and look forward to the next one.
Awesome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Wilhelmi.
Just one thing for the commissioners to consider, possibly the staff to consider, even in the rewrite. I'm not sure how this would be effectuated, but this idea of notice of maybe the radius increasing, giving the requirement to the developer, to whoever is presenting, that notice need to go to potentially more. And this kind of comes off my feelings with the Forest Lakes community that I do think will be impacted by the rezone that was just approved, and especially as they're trying to head south or north on 25 and dealing with what they already deal with, but possibly and likely increased visuals, as well as dealing with the amount of, say, traffic, but slow traffic in the form of large trucks trying to get on and off the highway right there. So I think if there's any consideration to expanding the notice, I would hope, but I can't speak for them, that the Forest Lakes community would have been interested in having some say in tonight's meeting.
Just to let you know, and all the commissioners know, we have new public notice signs. They're about 4 times as big as the other one, and they're going to have larger stake in the ground so they don't blow away, and so they're easier to read and a lot larger, so more people will notice these signs. Just to give you all a heads up to look out for them, and I can send you a picture of it because I'm so excited about it.
That's a great start. Great point, Chris.
That's all I got.
Chris, anything else?
No, that's all I got. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. The only announcement I have is COVID has delayed my doors. And so I will not get my CO in August. It's looking like September. So I will still be here more than likely in September.
Yay. You think it was COVID that delayed it. You guys know a guy.
Okay, next meeting is August 12th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Please arrive 15 minutes early. And woohoo, 6 minutes early. We are adjourning at 7:54.